Greg Tidwell. Thank you for joining me for this study on the context of biblical history. This week we'll be considering the Medo-Persian Empire. The Medes and the Persians were of Indo-European origin. They settled in the area that we now know as Iran and Iraq. Ancient Persia. The Persians and the Medes, while separate people, were inseparably joined together, and the Medes would influence later Persian thought. Media was the destination to which the king of Assyria deported the Israelites from Samaria around 721 BC. We read of this in 2 Kings 18:11. The king of Assyria carried the Israelites away to Assyria and put them in Halah, and on the Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. The Israelites would never return en masse to the Promised Land, and quite likely they were assimilated into the Jews in dispersion throughout the Persian Empire at a later time. The law of the Medes and the Persians figures prominently in the storyline of the books of Esther and of Daniel. The law of the Medes and the Persians could not be changed. This originated in Media, but was brought in with the Persians. The idea that a royal decree, once sealed, could not be altered. It figures in very prominently in the story of Daniel in the lion's den. If you'll remember, in order to set Daniel up, his adversaries got the king to sign a decree that anyone who prayed to any deity other than the king himself for a period of time would be thrown into a den of lions. Daniel, who everyone knew prayed 3 times a day in a very public way, was being set up with this. The king wanted to let Daniel off, but could not, because the law of the Medes and the Persians could not be changed. We read of this in Daniel 6, verse 8. Now, O king, establish the injunction and sign the document so that it cannot be changed, according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be revoked. This idea of a law being unalterable, even by the king himself, is something that was quite different. Most monarchs could rule at a whim, but the kings of the Persians could not. Cyrus II is the one who was the primary founder of the Persian Empire. When Belshazzar, the last emperor of the Babylonians, fell, we find that the Persians, the Medes and the Persians, took over what was Babylon, and it would very quickly be enlarged to become a very vast empire. In Isaiah 44:28, we read, "Who says of Cyrus, he is my shepherd, and he shall fulfill all my purpose, saying of Jerusalem, she shall be built, and of the temple, your foundation shall be laid." It's interesting that this pagan king is referred to by the Lord as his shepherd. He is doing God's work in restoring the Jews to the Promised Land. An even more striking statement is found in Isaiah 45:1. "Thus says the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have grasped, to subdue nations before him and to loose the belts of kings, to open doors before him that gates may not be closed." He goes on to describe the way in which God worked through Cyrus. But notice he's called the Lord's anointed. This is the exact expression that's used of the Messiah, the Lord's anointed, our Christ. And so it is that Cyrus, even though he was a pagan, serves as a picture of Jesus Christ, a picture of God's servant doing God's will. Cyrus was the one who restored the Jews to Israel. 2 Chronicles 36, verses 22 and 23. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, so that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and also put it in writing. Thus says Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has charged me to build him a house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Whoever is among you of all his people, may the Lord his God be with him. Let him go up. This proclamation to restore the Jews to the promised land and to build the temple had been prophesied by Jeremiah. Jeremiah 25, verse 12. Then after 70 years are completed, I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, the land of the Chaldeans, for their iniquity, declares the Lord, making the land an everlasting waste. The fall of Babylon after 70 years was prophesied, and so it was that with the Persians, the promised return was given. Jeremiah 29:10, for thus says the Lord, when 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will visit you, and I will fulfill to you my promise and bring you back to this place. The promised return was fulfilled, and Cyrus was God's chosen instrument to do this. The providence of God is shown very fully in the way in which he used Cyrus to achieve his ends. Darius I then figures into the narrative. The Persian Empire under Darius was vast. It was nearly 3,000 miles long and 1,500 miles wide. It was a huge empire, especially by ancient standards. Darius was defeated by the Greeks at the Battle of Marathon in 490 BC, which figures prominently in Western history. It was the way in which Europeans prevented Asia from invading them. Darius ordered the Jewish temple at Jerusalem to be rebuilt after work on it had been discontinued for 14 years. He also gave a generous subsidy that made it possible to complete the temple. Xerxes ruled Persia from 486 to 465 BC. He was Ahasuerus of the book of Esther. Esther became queen in the 7th year of his reign, which would have been about 478 BC. This was 2 years after his devastating defeat at Salamis, 480 BC, which ended Persia's last hope for conquering Greece. Next in line was Artaxerxes I, Longimanus, 464 to 424 BC. The second and third returns of the Jewish people from captivity in Babylon occurred during his reign. He reigned during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. Ezra was able to complete the building of the temple in part because of a generous royal gift. Now, it's important for us to see Persian religion. In fact, this is more important than any of the previous pagan religions we've considered thus far. Persian religion was based on the writings of Zoroaster. Zoroaster was a wise man, a sage, a prophet, a philosopher. He took the deities of ancient Persia and he rearranged them into two categories: those who were good, those who were bad. And this dualism is important. Ormazd headed the gods of goodness, and Ahriman headed the gods of evil. Whenever we consider this dualism, we find that it is important in world history. It was from Persian dualism that all of the major religions of the East became dualistic. The idea of the Tao being divided into the yin and the yang. This concept of dualism pervades Eastern religion, but it came into Western thought as well. It was from Persian dualism that the Greeks embraced a dualistic approach. Platonic dualism, the dualism of Plato, was imported from Persia. This idea of dualism, of matter being evil and only spirit being good, of there being this intertwined back and forth, the systole and diastole of good and evil, this continual struggle, it's very appealing. And of course, there is an element of truth, but the Bible is clear. God is supreme and he is eternal. The devil is not simply a different version of God, but rather he was a created being, a fallen angel. And that difference is important. We do not have an evil spirit that is equal to our God. In Zoroastrianism and in all of dualism, there is this underlying thought that the shadow, the darkness, is in some ways equal to and a mirror image of that which is light. Dualism from Platonism entered into the Catholic Church, into the Orthodox Church, and into many of the churches of the East. It is fundamental to Gnostic thought, and it continues to exert influence even to our very day. The Persian Empire was vast and prominent, but it would fall like a house of cards whenever Alexander the Great, Alexander of Macedonia, would come against it. And while it seemed to be such a solid and impregnable fortress, the various constituent parts of the empire very quickly shifted their allegiance away from the Persian king, and they aligned themselves with the victorious Alexander. The Medo-Persian Empire lasted until it was conquered by Alexander the Great in 330 BC. And with that, we will pick up next week with the study of the Greek Empire. I hope that you have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.